Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. We are in a curious time when the people think that by stopping or dropping or banning novels, withdrawing movies, toppling statues, changing the names of the towns and the cities would change the history, change the facts of life. But why are we rewriting history? Is history to be just the details of the rulers, or is it the socio-economic cultural account of the people? Does it matter that XYZ was the king and the ruler in such and such year? Or what's more important is that one person had the courage to be secular when the whole world was immersed in darkness. The anti-racism demonstrations sweeping the globe have brought forth this practice of bringing to the statues, rewriting history in a new focus. And I was very happy that today morning President Macron very categorically stated that the statues would not be removed in a bid to rewrite history. The most shocking was HBO withdrawing Gone with the Wind because it deals with depiction of slavery and racial prejudices. But isn't it ironic? The film is set in a background of war fought in the abolishment of slavery. It doesn't celebrate slavery. It is celebrating that war to finish slavery. And they withdraw the movie. This only shows that the reason has fled and we are ruled by emotions that are not logical. I understand emotions are never logical, but these are engineered emotions. They're not the real emotions. It happened in India when the rulers, the erstwhile rulers, the British rulers, their statues were removed in Delhi. They had Queen Victoria, and all these statues were sent to the museums. And then I also remember that when Taliban destroyed the statues of Buddha in Bamiyan, there was a hue and cry that the culture is being demolished and removed. Is it what is sauce for the goose, sauce for the gander? If what was wrong with Taliban, can that be justified by the people demonstrating against racism or those hardliner Hindutva followers who want to change the names of the cities? But then they are not the only guilty one. The former UPA government, the Congress government, which prides itself on being secular, did the same. Change the name of Mumbai from Bombay to Mumbai. The beauty and the charm and the age-old romance of the word Bombay cannot be translated into Mumbai. Pune becomes Pune, Bangalore becomes Bengaluru. And how tongue twisting it is. The worst was Trivandrum saying Tiruvananthapuram. Who can deny that the empires happened? Who can deny that the Mughals came to India and ruled India? Who can deny these undeniable truths? And isn't selective deletion of the old movies, TV programs, artwork, Are removing statues, changing names, just political driven revisionism? And if it's that, then it's a matter of shame. More than just recording of the past history, let's not forget that the facts are always elusive. But then historical revisionism has long been used by the political too, by those in power or those who want to change the status quo. The romanticization of empire and slavery tantamount to falsification of history. Indeed, more people in nations need to make aware that their wealth was built on the broken backs of millions of blacks and the browns. If they contributed to the progress of civilization, they also got enriched. It was a two-way traffic. But we are bidding goodbye to logic and to reason. We have to be careful that cultural racism is being created out of social consciousness and political culture, which we don't end up corrupting. Or we will correct the narrative still more. And as I said, the art of tampering with the history is not something new. The most prominent case of tampering that comes to my mind is that of Jesus Christ's image. Nobody knew how he looked like. Nobody. Whether he was white or black or brown, whether he was negroid with thick lips or was he uh, Aryan god, Nordic eyes, icy blue. Nobody knows. And then the Romans started depicting him with the European features. And that happened hundreds of years after he had been crucified. And till today, he is portrayed like that. However, considering that he was essentially a Palestinian Jew, he would look like probably more like Rami Malek than Christian Bale. This revolution may come quite a disappointment to the twice born Christians, but that's a fact. How can a Palestinian Jew look like a European of today? Not the European of the old age when the dark skinned people inhabited even England. And when right wing thugs like Tommy Robinson spout off about Churchill having died fighting the biggest races in our history, it's very clear that beyond Churchill's name and fame of V sign, Robinson knows nothing about either the British Empire or about wartime Prime Minister. And I was amazed when Priti Patel, the Home Minister in England, stands up and hails Mr. Churchill as one of the greatest protectors of freedom. So it's a politically consciousness rather than the desire to rewrite history. Is getting the brownie points. Now, calling Churchill the greatest protector of freedom when he was the person who was deadly against giving freedom to India is something different. And then, when Preeti says that, he seemed to forget that he had no interest in meting out the same freedom to millions of the citizens of the colonies. The British Raj had these colonies under their knees, the same way Floyd was under the knees of that cop. And that was for almost 200 years. I do not deride Churchill. As a matter of fact, I admire Churchill. His sense of history, his commitment, his capability, his sense of integrity, his honesty, his authenticity. Cannot deny or refute the fact that he was a racial bigot. He strongly believed the white men to be superior to the blacks. And these views might have influenced his decision. Quite possible. Otherwise, when millions of Indians died in Bengal famine, he had no word of sympathy. And I was amazed that he was capable of using chemical weapons against the Kurds in 1990, when the First World War had started. For the first time in the history, Churchill had authorized the use of chemical weapons. And regarding, later on he said, clearly in his autobiography, I am strongly in favor of using poison gas against uncivilized tribes. Now, who is to decide who is civilized and who is not? And then Angela Merkel, again another political hack and a politically correct person, says that she thanks the Allies for liberating Germans from the Nazis. Modern day Germans view that period, their history, with deep contrition, but then she is wearing a cloak, the cloak of German idealhood. She may not use the Nazi words, but the attitudes are same. Enough is enough. Inspired by the tearing down of the Colston statue in Bristol. I mean, imagine he was a traitor. And in Black Lives Matter march in Bristol, Edward Colston statue is thrown in the sewer. And along with that, who's others? Baden Powell, who started the Scout movement, Earl Mountbatten, Captain Cook, Christopher Columbus. These are the people who contributed to the growth of civilization. Distasteful personal views have nothing to do with their achievements. As a matter of fact, when these people are removing the statue or changing the names of the city, they resemble like the inquisitors of the past. The inquisitors who could kill Bruno, who could ask Socrates to take hemlock. The same people who were willing to let Galileo go off the hook and not kill him, provided he retracted and said that the earth moves around the sun, which he admitted, he said, and then he said, but still it moves. Earth is not stationary, still it's moving. And then, of all the beautifully horrifying things, Gandhi, the man of universal admiration as apostle of peace, is accused of prejudice and racism against the blacks. I'm facetious in mentioning Gandhi before we go around tearing those statues. We need to consider that these people lived in a period when civilized work was held by many social political views that we would find reprehensible today. They might have flaws from our point of view, but then who knows that our point of view would not have flaws in the coming generation's point of view. So shall the works of art of one period be demolished by the coming generation? Would this perpetual destruction never end? We should destroy history. Cannot. We cannot rewrite history. We can reconstruct it for posterity. Put it in a proper perspective. Now, I'm against colonialism and I was against the Mughals coming and ruling India. But One thing goes in favor of Mughals that they came, ruled India as Indians. Except Babur, no Mughal ever went back. No Mughal. They were born here, they died here, they were naturalized citizens. As far as Babur and Humayun were concerned, and the other generations were all born citizens. Akbar, Shah Jahan, they were born in this country simply because they were ruling and they happened to be sons of the people who from outside. That way, I think even Lord Rama came from outside because the Aryans were not originally Indians. And what was India at that time? Nothing. India was and city states were there. So there was no concept of India. Where do we draw a line in censoring? And as I said earlier, if we criticize ISIS in destroying Palmyra, Taliban for destroying Bamiyan, then should we continue with that attitude? Whether it's destroying statues, withdrawing movies, banning novels like Tom Sawyer, and who knows, tomorrow you might ban Shakespeare because Othello is a black guy and he, in a fit of jealousy, murdered a white woman. So, racist. Or Iago is a racist because he persuades Othello to commit a murder. Or maybe we do not claim that Caesar was good. He wanted to be king, and that's why Brutus murdered him. But Shakespeare is sporting these characters. Therefore, Shakespeare is a racist and he should be banned. Then Dickens should be banned. He shows Uriah as a usurer, and usually he is associated with the Jews. So he's a racist. There's no limit to all that. You cannot draw a line anywhere. If you do it, you will have to end up all the movies of 1990s, including Indiana Jones and Temple of the Doom. This is Dumbo. And even James Bond's Dr. No. The protagonist is a mysterious Asian male played by a Canadian white, but he's an Asian. The Bigotries movie, basically, The Heat of the Night, was very offensive to very white people. And yet, that movie is not being banned, though it's all around racist. So, shall we ban all literature the way we banned To Kill a Mockingbird? Shall we also ban the works of art, say Mona Lisa, because she is not depicted as a black? And who knows Cleopatra being praised by Shakespeare again as shades of racism in that. And as I said earlier, racism is a part of life. In one of my comments, I said, you cannot change it. Everybody is a racist. It can be for good and bad, but when racism degenerates into hatred and bigotry, that is bad. There was a time when the guardians of the uber cosmopolitanism used to say, well, we agree to disagree. But now we disagree in a manner which is disagreeable. And this false consciousness that is sought to be invoked is destructive to the human culture and civilization. Let's not forget one thing, that culture, art, sculpture, these are beyond the pale of racism and use of a word like nigger or any other sign which shows A different context today than in what it was written at that time has no meaning. The preoccupation of these destroyers is tangentially with the present, and no matter what the intersection between race and power and social status, these things are resonating in politics. But let's not forget that every action can have an equal and opposite reaction. And that's where that tragedy would be. If the human civilization has to survive, such vicissitudes would be common. But you have got to take things in a spirit as it is. And let me remind you what Oscar Wilde said: the past is a part of our future. There's connectivity. You wipe out the past, and your future is not going to be clear the way it should be. The stereotypes of the angry victims of the centuries of imperial oppression would not be able to remove oppression by the mention of the fact that they were slaves. They would not become free. No. So what is we are witnessing is a strange phenomena. It's a rage against history, rage against the reality of life, rage against what ought to have been but was not there. Acceptance is the way out. We have got to take things as they are, and that's why I remember when Nehru in India ordered all these statues to be put in Barrackpur in near Kolkata, Mena. That was a thing to do. But then that doesn't mean that India is still out of that. Connaught Place was changed into Rajiv Chowk, Flora Fountain into Kala Ghoda, something. And still people remember Flora Fountain and Connaught Place. So human memory, when deprived of the association and the romance, becomes poetic and lifeless. Let's not make life lifeless by taking away all the memories, all the culture, all the civilization, all the progress in the fine arts and throwing that in the dustbin. This is no way of preserving the integrity of Homo sapiens. Think about it. Thank you.